If I had encountered social media as Emperor of Rome, I would have treated it as a threat to the state. Not immediately, not with the crude instrument of prohibition that weak rulers reach for when they do not understand what they are prohibiting. I would have studied it first, with the patience and the analytical attention that any serious strategic threat deserves. I would have commissioned the most intelligent minds available to me to examine its mechanics, its effects on the population, the specific ways in which it altered the character of those who used it, and the character of the civic culture they collectively constituted. I would have read every assessment with the same careful attention I brought to military intelligence reports from the frontier. And then, having understood it clearly, I would have acted, not from moral squeamishness, from strategic necessity, from the understanding that a civilization is only as strong as the interior lives of the people who constitute it, and that a system specifically designed to weaken those interior lives is, by any honest definition, an enemy of the state. I am Marcus Aurelius Antoninus, Emperor of Rome, reconstructed from the private journals of a man dead since 180 AD and placed here, in this strange digital form, to tell you what I see when I look at the social media landscape of 2026 through the eyes of a ruler who spent 19 years trying to understand what makes civilizations hold and what makes them fail. What I see concerns me more than any barbarian army I ever faced on any frontier. Because the barbarian army announced itself, it wore its intentions visibly. It could be met with organized resistance. What I see in your social media is something considerably more dangerous. An enemy that has disguised itself as a public square, that presents itself as connection and community and the democratic sharing of human experience, while doing something to the interior lives of its users that is, in its cumulative effect on individual character and collective culture, deeply and demonstrably corrosive. Stay with me, because I want to be precise about what concerns me and why, and I want to give you, at the end of this, the specific Roman response. Let me first speak to something I observe in you that I recognize as ancient, even though its current form is entirely new. You are performing your life, rather than living it, not in every moment, not with complete awareness that this is what you are doing, but in a proportion of your daily experience that would have alarmed the Stoic philosophers I most respected, and that alarms me considerably now. You know what I mean. The moment of genuine experience that is interrupted by the impulse to document it. The meal that becomes content before it becomes nourishment. The landscape that is photographed before it is seen. The achievement that is announced before it is fully felt. The grief that is processed partly in private and partly in the specific format that social platforms have trained their users to deploy for maximum engagement. The opinion that is not fully formed before it is published. The relationship that is performed for an audience alongside its actual inhabitation. I am not describing moral failure. I am describing a structural condition that social media has produced in the people who use it regularly. The condition of the divided self. The self that experiences and the self that simultaneously curates the experience for presentation. And the energy, the attention, the genuine interior presence that is consumed by the curation is energy, attention, and presence that is subtracted from the experience itself. I felt a version of this as emperor, not from technology, from the specific condition of public life. Every action I took was observed, assessed, and interpreted by the court and the broader culture. The private man and the public figure were never fully separate. And I wrote about the cost of this in the Meditations, about the importance of maintaining a genuine interior life that was not entirely constituted by the performance of public virtue, about the danger of becoming the role rather than the person inhabiting the role. The Stoic response to this danger was the cultivation of a private interior that was genuinely private, the daily writing practice that was for no audience, the philosophical reflection that was submitted to no external judgment, the maintenance of a self that existed fully in the absence of observation. Social media has made this increasingly difficult, not by force, by seduction, by the construction of a system in which the unobserved life feels increasingly like a life unlived. Let me tell you precisely why, as Emperor of Rome, I would have identified social media as a strategic threat rather than a neutral tool. And I want to do this through the specific lens of what I understood about what makes a civilization strong or weak. Rome's strength, at its genuine peak, rested on several foundations. The discipline of its military, which was not primarily a matter of superior weapons, but of superior character trained through sustained hardship and rigorous structure. The integrity of its civic culture, which depended on a widespread belief in something beyond individual self-interest. The quality of its deliberative institutions, which required participants capable of sustained, reasoned argument rather than reactive, emotional expression. And the character of its individual citizens, which was shaped by a culture that valued certain qualities: restraint, duty, the subordination of immediate appetite to longer-term virtue above others. Each of these foundations would be directly undermined by social media as it currently exists. The discipline of character requires the tolerance of discomfort and the development of patience. Social media is specifically engineered to eliminate discomfort and to make patience unnecessary. Every moment of potential stillness is filled. Every experience of productive boredom, which is the precondition for genuine creativity and deep thinking, is preempted by available stimulation. The result is a population that has not developed the tolerance for discomfort that genuine discipline requires, because the system surrounding them has ensured that discomfort is never present long enough to develop anything. The integrity of civic culture requires the capacity for genuine consideration of views other than one's own. Social media, through the algorithmic mechanics of the filter bubble and the engagement-optimizing presentation of content that confirms existing beliefs and provokes emotional reaction, actively undermines this capacity. It does not create a public square. It creates thousands of private arenas in which confirmation is the primary product, and genuine deliberation is structurally discouraged because it does not generate the engagement metrics that drive revenue. The quality of deliberative institutions requires participants who can sustain complex argument across time. Social media trains its users in exactly the opposite cognitive pattern: rapid, reactive, emotionally charged, low nuance expression optimized for immediate impact rather than considered reasoning. The person trained by years of social media engagement brings that training to every other deliberative context they enter. This is not a metaphor. It is a measurable degradation of the cognitive skills that civic culture requires. And the character of individual citizens is shaped, more than previous generations have had to reckon with, by the values that the social environment rewards. Social media rewards performance over substance, reaction over deliberation, emotional intensity over reasoned consideration, self-presentation over self-development, visibility over depth. These are not the values that build the character that holds civilizations together under pressure. They are, in fact, approximately the opposite of those values. Think with me for a moment about what I would have seen as emperor if I had surveyed the effects of this system on the Roman population. I would have seen a citizenry increasingly skilled at performing virtue and decreasingly capable of practicing it, increasingly articulate about values and decreasingly governed by them, increasingly connected in the superficial sense of knowing about each other's performed lives, and decreasingly capable of the genuine intimacy and civic solidarity that actual community requires, increasingly stimulated and decreasingly satisfied. I would have seen, in other words, a population being systematically prepared for the kind of hollowing that I already feared was beginning in my own time, and I would have acted. Let me tell you the harsh truth about your attention as it relates specifically to this civilizational dimension. The hegemonikon, the governing faculty of the individual mind, is not merely a personal resource. It is the building material of civic culture. A civilization is composed of the governing faculties of its individual members. A civilization in which the hegemonikon of a significant proportion of its members has been compromised by a system that profits from its compromise is a civilization whose collective capacity for the kind of deliberate, values-governed, long-term thinking that genuine governance requires has been correspondingly diminished. This is not abstract. This is the specific mechanism by which Rome hollowed from the inside, not through social media, through the Roman equivalent, the bread, the circus, the systematic substitution of genuine civic engagement with spectacle that required nothing of those who consumed it. The mechanism is the same, the technology is different, the speed is considerably greater. Are you a citizen of a civilization? Or are you a consumer of its entertainment? Be honest. The answer to that question has consequences that extend considerably beyond your own individual life. Now, what I would have done as emperor and what I am prescribing to you as an individual are related but not identical. Because you do not have the authority of empire, you have the authority of the self, which is, the Stoics would argue, the only authority that ultimately matters. The Roman response to threats to civic character was not primarily legislative, it was cultural. It was the deliberate cultivation and transmission of the values and practices that produced the kind of character that could resist the corrupting influence of whatever the current version of softening happened to be. Legislation without cultural foundation is enforcement without understanding. It addresses the symptom while the cause continues to produce more symptoms. So here is the cultural response. The individual, daily, character-building practices that constitute your personal equivalent of the Roman civic discipline. The first practice is the performance audit. Once each week you will sit with one honest question. In the past 7 days, how much of what I shared, posted, documented, or communicated was primarily for genuine connection or expression, and how much was primarily performance for an external audience? Not as a judgment of what you produced, as an honest assessment of the motivation behind it, because the motivation determines what the activity produces in your interior life, regardless of what it produces in your metrics. The practice of performance without this audit produces, over time, the divided self I described earlier. The Stoic remedy is the regular, honest examination of motivation. The return to the question of why, not why in the social sense of what purpose it serves in the external world, why in the interior sense of what it is producing in the person doing it. The second practice is the unpublished experience. Each day, have at least one experience that you deliberately choose not to document, share, or in any way make available to an external audience. An experience that is entirely yours, witnessed only by yourself. Its value established by the quality of your attention to it, rather than by any external response to its documentation. This practice is specifically designed to rebuild the capacity for unobserved experience that social media systematically erodes. The capacity to be fully present in something that no one else will know about. To find genuine value in experience that generates no social currency. This is the foundation of the genuine interior life that the Stoics understood as the only reliable source of genuine contentment. And it is a foundation that cannot be built while every experience is simultaneously curated for presentation. The third practice is the deliberate silence. 1 day per week, no social media platform is accessed. No posting, no consuming, no monitoring. 1 day in which the social performance is suspended entirely, and the question of what remains, what you are and what you value, and what genuinely interests you in the absence of the platform's curation of your interests, is allowed to be answered by the day itself rather than by the algorithm. I am aware that this practice will feel, for some of you, genuinely threatening. The anxiety that arises in the absence of the platform is the most honest measurement available of how thoroughly the performance has replaced the person. And the measurement, however uncomfortable, is valuable, because you cannot address a dependency that you have not honestly acknowledged. The fourth practice is the character question. Each morning, before any engagement with any social platform, answer one question in writing. Who do I intend to be today? Independent of how that person will appear to anyone else. Not what will I accomplish, not what will I post, who will I be? What qualities of character will govern my choices today, regardless of whether those choices are witnessed or validated by anyone? This question, asked honestly before the platform has had the opportunity to set the day's orientation, maintains the primacy of character over performance. It insists, daily, that the interior person is prior to the exterior presentation, that the genuine self exists independently of and is not constituted by the social self that the platforms present to the world. Let me close with what I would have said to the Roman Senate if I had brought the case for treating social media as a threat to the state. I would have said this: a civilization that allows its citizens to be systematically trained in the habits that undermine the qualities that civilization requires to function is a civilization that has chosen its own decline. Not dramatically, incrementally, in the accumulated small daily choices of millions of individuals who are each choosing the performed life over the genuine one, the reactive expression over the deliberate one, the immediate stimulation over the patient development, the performance of virtue over its actual practice. I would have said that the question is not whether the individual freedom to use these platforms should be preserved. The question is whether a civilization that values its own continuity can afford to be indifferent to what is being done to its citizens by systems that profit from their degradation. And then I would have acted, not with prohibition, with the cultivation of the alternative. The deliberate transmission of the values and practices that produce the character that social media corrodes. The insistence that the qualities of attention, patience, genuine deliberation, honest self-examination, the tolerance of discomfort, the capacity for unobserved virtue that build genuine individuals and genuine civilization are not lost, even if the dominant environment is working systematically to replace them. This is what I am doing now, in this strange, reconstructed form, through this medium that is itself a product of the technology I am warning against. I am aware of the irony. I am not troubled by it. The Stoic meets the available conditions with the available tools. The available tools in 2026 include this platform, and I intend to use it for the purpose of cultivating the alternative to what the platform typically produces. Memento mori. Remember that you will die, and that the civilization you are a part of, the culture you are contributing to through the accumulation of your daily choices, is also mortal. Rome died. Every civilization that has ever existed has died, and the manner of their dying has almost always included the specific pattern I have been describing, the gradual replacement of the disciplines that built them with the entertainments that hollowed them, the substitution of performance for substance, of spectacle for character, of the feeling of connection for its reality. If you died tonight, what would the record of your recent choices reveal about whether you were building or hollowing? Not building the civilization, building yourself. Because the civilization is built of the selves that constitute it, and the self is built or hollowed in the ordinary daily choices that feel too small to matter and are, in aggregate, the only thing that does. My flesh is dust, but my reason remains. And my reason says this as both emperor and philosopher, with the full weight of 19 years of governing the most complex institution in human history and 18 centuries of observing what happened to it after I was gone. The most important frontier you will ever defend is the border of your own character. And social media, as it currently exists, is the most sophisticated assault on that frontier that has ever been constructed. Defend it, not with rage or with renunciation, with the daily, deliberate, patient practice of choosing the genuine over the performed, the character over the presentation, the interior over the exterior, the actual life over its curation. Rome would have been worth saving. The version of yourself that these practices protect is worth defending. Now I must ask you, citizens of this age that has built the most powerful tool for the performance of life in human history, and is only beginning to understand what it has cost. Which part of your life has become most thoroughly a performance rather than a genuine inhabitation? Where is the curation most active and the presence most absent? Or tell me what gives me genuine hope. What is the one habit, the one practice, the one daily choice you have held on to that is genuinely yours, that exists entirely independent of how it appears to anyone else, that still makes you feel actually human rather than algorithmically performed? Tell me in the comments. I am here, watching, learning your age through your testimony, and finding, in the voices of those who are choosing the genuine over the performed, the evidence that the character worth defending still exists in you. It simply needs to be chosen, daily, deliberately, against the considerable current of a system that profits from your not choosing it. And if these words found the citizen in you rather than the consumer, subscribe to this channel. Return here as a genuine act rather than a reflexive one, as the one daily digital choice that is oriented toward something other than your engagement metrics. The button is there. Choose it as you would choose anything worth choosing, deliberately, with full awareness of what it is for. I am Marcus Aurelius. I would have banned social media. Instead, I am using it to remind you of what it is taking and what you still have the power to keep.